Hello everyone and welcome to a critique of Outlast. Outlast came out 12 years ago. A brief introduction is due to justify the existence of this video. I am a fan of the horror genre in general, but especially horror games. The interactive nature of video games allows for a far more personal, intimate kind of terror. You are not just watching a character get chased, you are the character, fumbling in the dark, panicking as something snarls behind you. That kind of immersion is something no other medium can quite replicate. It's no surprise that so many early Let's Players made their names on horror games. And was through those same YouTubers that I first discovered Amnesia: The Dark Descent many years ago. And what a game it was. To this day, I still consider Amnesia one of the greatest horror experiences ever made. When I finished it, I was hungry for more, desperate even. So when I saw the YouTubers I followed playing a new title called Outlast, I decided to check it out. I first played Outlast around the time it launched, and what I felt was disappointment. Over time, the details blurred, but that feeling stuck with me. Whenever the game came up in conversation, I always said I didn't like it, but I could never articulate exactly why.
What do you think? Whatever.
Last October, I was looking for some horror games I could play. It's Halloween season after all, and I stumbled upon many Outlast reviews praising the game. Why Outlast is still the best horror game. Why Outlast is more terrifying than we thought. The most vile villain in gaming ever. New videos with new streamers shitting their pants. In addition, the game has a great score on Metacritic and overwhelmingly positive Steam reviews. Feeling like I was in the minority, I thought maybe my experience with the game was not what most people had. So I decided to refresh my memory and give the game a second chance. Now, after replaying it several times, I can say with confidence that I still do not like this game. In fact, not only did I not enjoy it, but I also don't think Outlast is a particularly good game. It's overhyped, it adds nothing meaningful to the genre. Other games of the same type do a lot better than what this game tries to do. It's shallow, overly reliant on cheap tricks, formulaic and ultimately derivative. In this retrospective critique, I'll break down Outlast's gameplay, story, characters, sound design, and visuals. This review won't cover the Whistleblower DLC, as this project is already large enough on its own. And as the title suggests, we'll also look at how the game holds up 12 years later, and what influence, if any, it's had on the genre since. Additionally, I will reference other videos, reviewers of Outlast. I feel like this is something that was missing in my previous works, as checking other videos may provide a different point of view and an opportunity for me to respond to said point and explain why it sucks. With Outlast, there is surprisingly not much to cover. Most videos are either really, let's say, obscure.
He begins to realize that Mount Macedon Asylum is not looking so good. Haha, I got you. Owned.
Or videos covering the story of Outlast series, its narrative in deep details. And it's fine, but there is nothing really to review. But there are some reviews with interesting opinions. As we go along, some of the section choices might seem a bit odd. For example, when discussing visuals, I'll talk about the game's graphics, art direction and cinematography, while its level design will be addressed in the gameplay segment. You could absolutely argue that certain topics overlap or deserve their own dedicated section, and you would be right. But the nature of video games is such that every part bleeds into another, and such division is only done for the sake of this video having some kind of structure. I structured this video in a way that felt most natural to me, allowing each segment to flow into the next. With all that said, we shall begin. Let's start with Outlast's story, its plot and lore. Outlast's story is an interesting case. It definitely leaves a lot to be desired. Vagueness and ambiguity are practically staples of the horror genre, and Outlast is no exception. The problem is that the game leaves so many gaps that a lot of its online discussion ends up as fanfiction, people inventing a story on the game's behalf rather than interpreting what's actually there. A good example of that is the main antagonist, the Wall Rider. You can find a lot of theories about what the Wall Rider is. Some claim it to be a ghost or a manifestation of everything horrible in the asylum, or a vengeful spirit, when in reality the game directly tells you what it is. Yet people ignore it and come up with their own theories. I will not do that. I will also try to avoid any outside of the game media like comics, novels, or anything else. The only source I will rely upon are those which are available in the game itself, the events that are shown and told to us through dialogue, documents and notes. It can be hard since not much is shown in the game itself, it's rather empty. So what makes a story good? At its simplest, a story provides motivation. It gives the player a reason to move from point A to point B. It should be internally logical, believable within its own universe, and it shouldn't make the strings pulling the protagonist painfully obvious. The moment you see the seams, immersion breaks. With that in mind, let's look at what Outlast actually offers. We play as Miles Upshur, a freelance journalist. Miles received a tip-off from a whistleblower about Mount Massive Asylum, a psychiatric hospital owned and operated by the Markov Corporation. Horrific things are supposedly happening behind closed doors, and Miles, according to the intro, sets out to expose the truth. After many horrific events, Miles encounters the Wall Rider, a nanomachine ghost thing that is at the center of Mount Massive's madness. On his journey, Miles learns the truth about the asylum and the Wall Rider. He reaches the underground lab where he meets Dr. Wernicke, the lead scientist behind Project Wall Rider. Wernicke instructs Miles to kill Billy Hope, Wall Rider's host, which Miles successfully does. The Wall Rider, now without a host, attacks Miles and fuses itself with his body, taking him as its new host. Upon trying to leave the lab, Miles is gunned down by mercenaries who are led by Wernicke. As the final moments imply, Wernicke sees that the Wall Rider has become sentient, and it attacks and kills all of them. That's the Outlast plot. As you would expect from a third-level horror story, it's riddled with contrivances, from small inconsistencies like how this document is dated as September 19th, while the events of the game happen on September 17th, to major leaps in logic. Let's break it down piece by piece. Back at the beginning, Miles arrives and easily enters Asylum's territory without any checks. There are military trucks parked outside which could explain the lack of guards. Something might have happened, but that doesn't explain what Miles' plan was if the place had been operating normally. I guess we'll never know. The front door is locked, so he climbs in through a window via scaffolding. Inside, he sees blood and bullet holes. As our hero probably does not have enough info for a sensation yet, we proceed. This vent is the furthest place you can reach where you still have an option to go back. Once you fall down, you're cut out. You can return, but an inmate you saw before closed the wooden door on you, and there is no way Miles can break it, right? Soon after, he finds a room filled with corpses, staff members, security, military personnel. One dying guard warns him to get out. Makes sense so far. The task is updated. Throughout the process of the game, we get new objectives. There is no clear indication whether these objectives come from Miles' thoughts or his POV, or is it just a meta text to guide us through the game. But those objectives are a good indication of Outlast's story progression, so let's keep track of that. The first objective we get is to investigate the asylum. Done. Next, escape the asylum. Also reasonable. One guard even tells you how to unlock the main doors, although you can completely miss him, and the objective remains unchanged. Fair enough though, Miles could plausibly figure it out by himself. Miles gets caught by Chris Walker, and he throws Miles through the window. Another inmate, Father Martin, comes to us. Martin calls Miles an apostle to the deeds being done at Mount Massive Asylum. Father Martin cuts the power, so we have to restart the generator. Okay. Then the priest puts Miles to sleep, as he doesn't want Miles to leave just yet. He wants to see the Wall Rider and other stuff. So far, so good. Miles wakes up in a cell in the prison block. We meet the Vinky Bros who threaten us. We get the next task. Follow the blood trails to the exit. Wait, what? Father Martin was the one who put us in the cell in the first place. He's obviously the one leaving the blood trails. Why would Miles follow them, and why would they lead to an exit? The game and its tasks stop making sense from here on, but it's not like we have much of a choice. The only way open for us is where the blood leads, so we proceed. After walking around for some time, Miles sees inmates jumping down the sewers, and the task gets updated. Wait, why do we need to get into the sewers? Why does Miles suddenly think the sewers lead to an exit? The blood message said down the drain, but the actual trail doesn't lead there. Regardless, into the sewers we go. After running away from Chris Walker, with the assistance of a conveniently opened van that has a conveniently placed table right under it, Miles gets into the sewers, and immediately a new task pops up. Get out of the sewers. What the fuck? It's not like I wanted to get here in the first place. After further walking around and getting weird tasks, Miles gets chased down by a bunch of variants until he hears a voice that offers help. The voice belongs to Richard Traeger, who beats Miles up and then tortures him. Miles loses 2 fingers and then escapes. Props to the game for being consistent. Miles remains fingerless till the end of the game, and the mango hand is genuinely gruesome. You can see his bones sticking out and all that. Miles escapes, though even if you fail this cutie, he escapes anyway, foreshadowing the kind of player agency Outlast tends to offer. Anyway, once out, Miles sees someone tied to a bed. That someone claims to be a former employee, just like Traeger. But look at the state of him now, a work of the mad doctor himself. The man starts screaming, and Traeger comes back and notices you're gone, which does not please him. Miles gets chased down by Traeger until they fight, where Miles successfully overwhelms him, and Traeger dies. By the way, how the fuck does Traeger get to the lower floors so fast? Look at this, I'm running away from him. You can even hear his footsteps behind me when I'm getting in the elevator. Then bam, he's already here and is waiting for me. He's not the only one with a teleportation ability in the game, but we'll get to that. Miles meets Father Martin, who tells Miles to meet him outside. The fact that Miles keeps trusting Martin is baffling. What exactly does he expect Martin to do for him? Martin is the one who drugged him, imprisoned him, and indirectly caused half his suffering. The documents Miles finds about Martin portray him as deeply unstable. We get some lines here and there about how all the doors will be opened once you know the truth.
Only way out of this place is the truth.
But I didn't think it was meant to be taken literally. And at most, we get a comment from Miles about how the priest's way is questionable. Then again, there is not much of a choice, so Miles follows him. After some more running, Miles finally reaches Father Martin, who has decided to sacrifice himself. Martin tells Miles that he showed Miles everything he wanted, and now his final demonstration is letting Miles film him being burned alive. The funny thing is that you don't need to film it. Whether you do or not, Martin has no reaction whatsoever. His dialogue doesn't change, and the game treats it as if you de facto filmed it. Before getting burned, the priest also tells Miles that he's free now. The elevator is fixed. Here's the key, go home. The priest tricks Miles one last time, as the elevator does not take him to the first floor. It goes lower, to the underground lab. How did Father Martin manage to do that? Did he reprogram the elevator somehow? And is there really only one way out? The staircase next to the elevator is conveniently locked, of course, as usual, and there is no way Miles can get through that hole, right? Anyway, Miles reaches the underground lab where the Wall Rider chases him. For some reason, the Wall Rider does not kill Miles in a glimpse. Like, you meet him before and he just sorta passes through you, whereas he relentlessly kills others. On higher difficulties, he also one-shots you, but not in that place, and he doesn't one-shot you on lower difficulties, he just tackles you. And even in cutscenes, he just throws you around when we know that he can get inside you and just tear you apart. More questions arise when Chris Walker appears in the underground. He finally catches Miles, but then the Wall Rider swoops in and kills Chris. Again, sparing Miles for no clear reason. Maybe the Wall Rider wants to lure Miles in, so that Miles could kill Billy, thus freeing the Wall Rider from Billy's body. That would be an interesting story, except the Wall Rider will kill you if you mess up. And you see what I meant before by fanfiction. I'm writing the game's story for it, when in reality it's just bullshit. Miles meets Rudolph Wernicke, who is revealed to be alive. He explains to Miles how normally he should have already been dead. But somehow Billy keeps him alive because, according to his own words, he may think that Wernicke is his father. Then he explains how the Murkoff Corporation contacted him to help them with human nanotechnology experiments, which they wished to conduct on the asylum patients, with the only reason being profit. Eventually, through his work, the scientists produced the precise molecules necessary. He also laments the fact that it was foolish from the very beginning to think they could master such powerful technology, but regardless continued due to the possible large profit. The work Wernicke refers to is the morphogenic engine. Morphogenic engine is a machine we see in the lab. It's also the whole reason the place was opened and why so many patients look the way they look in this place. Throughout the game, we get snippets about Wernicke's past and the research. Father Martin shows us a video explaining what the morphogenic engine is, and we find documents about it. In his early days, Wernicke worked with Alan Turing on a paper which later served as a basis for the creation of the engine, which Wernicke was able to develop while working with the Nazis. Maybe it's just me, but the mention of Alan Turing sounds really dumb. I get that they try to ground the story that way and make it more realistic, but the end result is the opposite. Later, Wernicke was contacted by the Murkoff Corporation to help them with human nanotechnology experiment, which they wished to conduct on the asylum's patients. As for the engine itself, how does it work? Well, we don't really know. But this is the formula for it. This is so fucking dumb. No way they expect me to believe that some tiny formula is capable of this. Prior to interfacing with the engine, patients are subjected to the therapy sessions designed to induce extreme mental states. This is intended to trigger a psychosomatic response in the patient's bodily systems, which renders them more receptive to the nanoswarm production and control process. How exactly are the patients put in this mental state? Absolute horror, torture, pushing their sanity past the breaking point. This supposedly forces them into a lucid dream state where they can control the nanoswarm and become the Wall Rider host. Which is also why Wernicke was able to achieve results when he worked on the Nazis, since, well, the Nazis. Over the course of the next 4 years, Murkoff would continually use patients and even members of their own staff if they found them expendable, such as Dr. Richard Traeger, as test subjects, dubbed as variants, in order to find the right mind that could successfully host the nanoswarm. These attempts would always end in failure, and not only severely damage the minds of the already ill patients, but also mutilate them. When the term variant is first used in the game, it sounds like something supernatural, but in reality, variants are just mutilated, mentally broken humans. Even Chris Walker's absurdly large size isn't tied to the experiments. Eventually, one such variant, known as William Hope, achieved in making a lateral ascension during the process and successfully became the first host of the Wall Rider. Despite this, however, the Wall Rider was somehow able to escape and, being controlled by the demented mind of Billy, began to slaughter anyone it could find, regardless of whether they were with Murkoff or not. The incident also allowed the variants to break free and begin murdering the Murkoff doctors, guards and other employees in revenge for the experimentation done on them. This is a lot. First off, the idea that only someone who is put through unimaginable horror can control the nanomachines is treated as a fact. We have to accept it even if it sounds dumb. Next, Markov decided to use the Asylum's patients for their experiments, with the only reason being profit. How was Markov hoping to profit from such a project? The obvious answer would be military, right? But how did they expect to pitch such an idea if it was successful? Look, we have an invincible ghost thing that can kill anything that moves, and it's controlled by lunatics. Obviously, they expected somehow to control it, but even Wernicke himself states how stupid it was. There are mentions of MK Ultra in the game, so maybe they expected to somehow brainwash/control the psychos who reach a lateral ascension, although wouldn't making someone a puppet render the whole procedure meaningless, since their mind would be in a different state. Maybe an ability to control the nanomachines is permanent, like a perk. The reality is we don't know, we don't have enough details. Despite how stupid the experiment is, Billy became the first host. Why him? No clue. Almost nothing is known about Billy. It's never mentioned that he's special in any way. We just have to accept that. For some reason he was able to endure the process. What happens once the Wall Rider emerges? He kills them all. Did they not have any safety protocols? What did they expect? Their goal was to complete the Project Wall Rider, and once it is done, they are shocked that it worked. Keep in mind that between Billy's ascension and the arrival of Miles, a couple of hours pass. They didn't have any precautions at all. They call in 3 military trucks, everyone dies. They call in more soldiers by the end, those guys also die. What exactly was the plan here? It's also evidence that the Wall Rider can't pass through a decontamination gate, just like everyone in the game except Miles, apparently. Since he can't pass through the gates, wouldn't it be relatively easy to contain him? Judging by the morphogenic engine chamber precautions, the life support system needs a lot of care and constant surveillance to work properly. So then wouldn't Billy just die on his own after some time? Of course, the Wall Rider might be able to keep him alive, as he apparently did the same with Wernicke, but then disabling the system wouldn't do much by now, would it? Also, how does a place like this even operate? Mount Massive poses as a charitable organization. Are we supposed to believe no one inspected the facility for years? Are we meant to assume Markov bribed absolutely everyone? We're shown through the game and in the DLC that Markov has the power to appoint basically anyone in the asylum and somehow threaten everyone else to avoid any charges. But it's not like they fly under the radar. The corporation has a long track record of disguising profit as charity. Their power and influence must be almost limitless for a place like this to exist. So you see, you need to suspend your disbelief a lot and ignore a lot of obvious questions. But let's get back to the game. After being done talking, Wernicke instructs Miles to stop Billy and turn off his life support system so that he could effectively kill the Wall Rider. Miles leaves the room, and after much effort and somehow surviving this shit, Miles stops Billy's life support and kills him. Funnily enough, Miles himself comments on how he probably doesn't have the knowledge on how to stop the engine. It should be pretty complicated with a lot of safety protocols, right? Nope, just turn one lever and rip out the wires. Boom, job done. In what looks like a final gasp, the Wall Rider flings Miles around again and disappears. Miles limps towards the exit but is confronted by Wernicke, who is accompanied by several armed guards, who repeatedly shoot Upshur. As he collapses, the screen fades to black, and Wernicke's voice is heard as he realizes Miles has become the Wall Rider's new host. He panics, the Wall Rider attacks, gunfire and screams fill the air, and the credits roll. Some people claim the ending to be ambiguous, that Miles might be alive, that he might control the Wall Rider now.
If you were confused why they shot you or why you didn't die by the fall, it's because you became the host of the Wall Rider.
I'm not sure how becoming the host for the Wall Rider gives you extra durability. Also, Miles survives this fall when Billy is still alive. What are you on about? Other reasoning usually comes from the fact that Miles suffers a lot throughout the game and is exposed to the engine, but nothing he endures resembles the required conditions described in the documents. There is no solid basis for the idea that he ascended. Narratively, Miles is dead. His body is just a vessel. As you can see, Outlast story collapses under even mild scrutiny. It's really hard to believe in the events that transpire. What about lore? Well, the game tries. It sprinkles documents everywhere. Usually you find files that conveniently explain the exact thing you are standing next to, or the enemy you just encountered. Met Father Martin? Here's a document about him. Chris Walker is chasing you. Here's a therapy note. It's almost as if everyone walks around dropping their paperwork behind them. And also, the documents are kinda boring. I know it's not a valid criticism, but they are written in such an uninspiring way that you can't help but feel bored. They try to replicate the real documents to immerse you in a feeling that this is a real facility with real documents. But there are other ways to do that. Reading documents is already something not everyone is excited about, and making it even more of a chore is definitely a choice. Contrary-wise, Amnesia has a voiceover of their documents and adds cutscenes. Outlast just gives you documents where half of them are just boring facts. It would be pretty hard to believe that everyone in the Murkoff Corporation is a piece of shit, so the documents mention that at least some employees aren't that bad. Employees asking to be transferred, someone questioning the asylum's methods, the whistleblower's tip. It adds a little nuance to an otherwise cartoonishly evil corporation, but it doesn't seem to have any meaning apart from showing that not everyone here is or was bad. Somehow, Markov has so much influence to just shut them all up. A good example of how nonsensical it all looks is the DLC, where the wife of a main character tries to sue the corporation because her husband was put into the asylum for no reason. But she gets threatened by Markov with large healthcare bills. Bills for what? He's not actually insane. You falsely put a person in the asylum and no one notices. It's impossible to believe that such a place exists, and the characters of Outlast do not make it more believable. Characters are a vital part of almost any game. Even titles that lean heavily on gameplay usually feature at least a few personalities. The Binding of Isaac is basically a frantic arcade roguelike, yet Isaac and his mother still have enough presence to give that world some emotional texture. In horror games, characters matter even more. Strong personalities can immerse you deeper into the story and amplify the horror. Sure, games like Slenderman The 8 Pages barely feature characters at all, but those are more like tech demos than fully realized works. Outlast doesn't have a large cast, but there's still enough here to talk about. First, of course, is our protagonist, Miles Upshur. What can be said about Miles? He's a self-employed journalist, a ballsy one. According to a cutscene that was not used in the game, Miles originally worked as a regular journalist for an unknown company before being fired, as a result of posting unacceptable material regarding the situation in Afghanistan. You see what I was referring to earlier? This is important backstory. This is the kind of thing that defines a character, but none of it is actually in the game, is it? This is exactly the type of external lore I try to avoid relying on in my reviews, but in Outlast's case, without digging into outside sources, there is almost nothing to talk about. Even with the extra info, it doesn't get much deeper, but at least it's something. I can appreciate an option to find more secrets, more information, even outside the game, but I don't think the game should expect you to do so. The game should work as a standalone project. Anything beyond it is a bonus, not a necessity. With Outlast, I cannot stress enough how empty the game becomes if you don't go looking for extra material. Even if you do find it, the result is still thin. In this case, knowing Miles' background gives him more depth and explains some of his actions. Like he seemingly sympathizes with Chris Walker as he hopes Chris didn't find another hell when he died. This sympathy could come from the fact that Miles also served in Afghanistan, perhaps recognizing a fellow soldier scarred by war. It's a nice touch. It's just a shame it's not in the actual game. Now, Some people argue that Miles is stupid for going into the asylum alone based on an anonymous tip, but the intro clearly establishes him as an ambitious, almost reckless reporter who will do anything to get a story, even if it means walking into danger head first. Miles doesn't speak, aside from grunts and screams, but he writes notes, and those notes give us some insight into who Miles is. He's rather aggressive, he employs humor in places hardly suitable for jokes. He's cynical, blunt, and uncompromising, all of which helps Miles survive the events of the game. The notes also imply that Miles slowly loses his mind due to the events he goes through in the asylum. He starts to hear some things in his head, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And that's all I can say about Miles, our main character. Every other character is essentially an enemy. You could argue the priest isn't hostile, but the man literally euthanizes you and traps you in this nightmare in the first place. He may not try to kill you outright, but ironically enough, he ends up being directly responsible for Miles' death by sabotaging the elevator. Outlast has a total of 39 encounters, excluding random jump scares. Those are the military guy at the beginning, Chris Walker, Father Martin, the twins, the Wall Rider or Billy Hope, Richard Traeger, Pyromaniac, Rudolph Wernicke, and unnamed variants. Out of those 39, 21 are the encounters where the player needs to actively participate, by which I mean you need to hide or run away from an enemy. Out of those 21, you get chased down by Chris Walker 8 times. This excludes encounters like all the Wall Rider encounters apart from the ones in the lab. I wanna highlight this problem even more. Here is a sheet that includes each encounter in the game. Out of all 39 encounters, you meet Walker 10 times. That is almost a third. And if you include the chase or hiding sequences only, he is in like half of those. He is overused to the point that when you hear his fucking chains by the end of the game, it comes out as unintentionally comedic. 7 more encounters are with generic variants with zero personality, interchangeable angry dudes who all look the same. The end result is that the game becomes repetitive real quick. But let's examine the characters we have at least. He looks like another inmate, but he's a man with a purpose, someone who hasn't gone batshit crazy in this place. Well, at least not fully. You meet him at the beginning, and he thinks you are an apostle God sent because you have a camcorder and can expose this place, and can share his gospel. Throughout the game, you mostly follow him, and he's the main reason you go through all the horrors. He puts you to sleep when you try to run away, and lures you in deeper into the asylum. It seems, however, that Martin was rather sane. He enjoyed finger painting and had some enormous strides in his therapy on account of it. But once the therapy program was cancelled, he snapped, dove head first into his sermons about the Wall Rider, and became obsessed. In the end, he commits suicide in some sort of ritual, a prayer to the Wall Rider, and a demonstration to you, one which Martin expects you to film in order to spread it to the world, which you can just not do. And even if you do, not sure how he expects Miles will spread the news when he sets you to meet the Wall Rider. Does he expect Miles to survive the encounter? What a dumb fuck.
Little fake.
A very large and burly man who possesses superhuman strength and durability. Apparently none of those have anything to do with the experiments. He was huge before being exposed to the engine. Chris is ex-military police, served in Afghanistan where he sustained mental trauma, and exposure to the engine only deepened his instability. His ripped skin is a result of self-mutilation. He's fixated on following the protocols. This is the only thing he knows how to do. And his sole purpose seems to be containment, killing anyone he sees as a potential host for the Wall Rider, which doesn't really explain his fixation on Miles. He chases Miles until the end of the game where he's killed.
You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
It's unclear why he took such interest in Miles specifically. Why not other inmates? We see him behead another inmate and other inmates running away from him, but Walker doesn't seem to chase them. Instead, he chases you. He also doesn't touch the priest, whose goal opposes Walker's attempts to contain the Wall Rider. Maybe the priest was just lucky enough not to meet him.
Who's this?
Da Vinci?
Two naked machete-wielding inmates who calmly describe in disturbingly vivid details how they plan to dissect and eat you. A lot of people like the twins. I do not.
But I think the most twisted of the bunch are the twins, which I can't really show too much footage of. For one, you know, they're naked, and I couldn't help but film... I couldn't resist. I had to film their sausages for evidence of how screwed up this place is. I don't know what it is, but seeing these two dudes naked as the day they were born is just unnerving.
So wait, you think that in the asylum full of necrophiles, cannibals, fucking Traeger, the most twisted ones are the twins, because you can see their dicks. Okay, they don't attack you at first, as they say you are sort of protected by Father Martin, but they quickly change their minds, and on the second encounter they already tell you that they'll tear you apart. But they never really try to kill you. Here they stand and speak about how they will kill you, but once you climb out the window and get to the other side, they vanish. Thus everyone in this game can teleport. The third time you bump into them and jump out of the window to hang on the ledge, they act like smartasses and sarcastically point out that they know where you are, which still doesn't stop you from literally climbing back up behind their backs 2 meters away, and one of them is even looking at you. Then they walk a couple of meters and return back to you, slowly walking towards you before you get to an impossible obstacle, a door. Yeah, you fucking are. What is weird that this is the last time they speak. It feels like someone simply ran out of dialogue for them. The next time you meet them, they just slowly approach you. For someone who claimed to tear you apart, it sure doesn't seem like they're trying. And the last time you meet them, they're not hostile at all. They just stand there, not reacting to you. It was so out of pocket to see them here and have no reaction whatsoever that I thought maybe they were just reused skins. But nope. It's them. I guess they followed Father Martin's instructions, but for some reason decided to disobey for a couple of hours. And even then, they didn't look like they actually tried to kill you. We know almost nothing. Billy looks relatively intact compared to other variants. His mother gave him to the Markov Corporation in exchange for a large sum of money. She died, presumably killed by the corporation. Or maybe she didn't die. One document suggests that she did, but then another document states that by 2012 his mother was in the middle of a lawsuit against Markov and the asylum. Hope believed that Wernicke was his father, at least according to Wernicke himself. Billy became the Wall Rider's first host, broke free, massacred the staff. Then Miles kills him. That's about it.
I know. I am supposed to be dead.
He's one of the researchers who worked in the hidden research facility beneath Mount Massive Asylum, and one of the more prominent figures behind Markov psychiatric systems, as well as the lead scientist behind Project Wall Rider. In his early life, he achieved fame in mathematics and scientific communities for a paper written with Alan Turing. Later, Wernicke worked for Nazi Germany to develop an early design of the morphogenic engine. He then migrated to the US. After decades of government research in Los Alamos, in 2009 Markov faked his death and had an obituary published while he continued to work on the project in the Mount Massive Asylum laboratories under the guise of charity work. The obituary also stated that Wernicke spent his retirement pursuing landscape photography and caring for his pet cats, leaving no descendants. Little is known about Wernicke's personality as we see him only twice, but he seems to be a man with a lot of regrets, a man exhausted by his own conscience, almost welcoming death.
So I'm gonna come find you.
Last but not least, Traeger is rather an exception. Richard Traeger was an employee at Mount Massive Asylum. the head of business development and an executive of research development for the Markov Corporation. Traeger and Miles meet when Miles tries to escape from other inmates, and Traeger pretends to be an ally and lures Miles in only to beat him and strap to a wheelchair. On the surface, Traeger appears to be a very upbeat and friendly man, always cracking jokes and never losing his composure. Only in the end he becomes filled with rage once Miles escapes. Traeger is a sadistic, murderous psychopath who takes great delight in torturing virtually anyone he comes across. His insane mutterings and notes reveal he's obsessed with making money, believing the only thing that really matters is making profit. And he has a demented fascination with biology. He soothes both of these obsessions with his torturous occupation, learning about biology by cutting up his victims and gaining money by selling the severed parts. And unlike the twins, who similarly act calmly and have a particular interest in body parts, Traeger actually poses real danger. He goes for the kill with Miles and actually mutilates him. Environmental storytelling is on point here as well. Traeger gets his own area almost independent from the rest of the game. In the male world, you can see victims of his operations. Writings on a wall suggest which body parts you would probably lose after the fingers. Traeger loves to play with his victims, as seen in a scene where he taunts Miles by showing him the exit only to strip it away a few seconds later. Or even in his body exclamations.
Hold up there, buddy.
Although his playfulness results in his own demise when he's crushed by an elevator. Nonetheless, a true highlight of the game. That's all the info we have on the characters. Rather lacking, isn't it? Aside from Traeger, none of them are particularly interesting, and many encounters involve nameless variants with zero personality. But let's check what other reviewers had to say about Outlast characters.
These characters are leagues ahead in terms of disturbing when compared to any other game.
Are they? I agree that Traeger is disturbing, and you mentioned Eddie from the DLC, who is fairly disturbing, but what about other characters? We've got cannibalistic twins, plenty of cannibals in other games, a religious fanatic, which is a stable in Far Cry games, and an intelligent brute, a ghost, and unnamed psychos. What makes them so special?
In Outlast, the frights don't come from ghouls and ghosts. Instead, real-world fears provide plenty of their own horror.
Your casual real-world fear, the Wall Rider. And yes, strictly speaking, he's not a ghost, but come on.
They were helpless not only to their minds, but to their torture. This is really the tragedy of Outlast. This is why Traeger is such a ruthless madman. He wasn't ever tested. He was a Murkoff executive. He did all that damage to himself and tortured other people just for fun.
Traeger was an inmate. Besides the fact that it is clearly stated in the game, why would he look like that if he wasn't exposed to the engine? Where did you get the info that Traeger did that to himself? See what I'm talking about? Fan fiction.
Because you see that these patients all have different motives, different ideas, and they're in the asylum for different things.
So the first guy you show tells you that he wants to get out because he is scared of the Wall Rider. The next one you show is a guy afraid of the experiments, so he wants out because of the Wall Rider project. The one you show at the beginning is a guy asking to let him out because he's scared. What's so different about them? At best, there are like 3 variations of random NPCs. Ones who want out, ones who want to kill you, and just insane ones.
It's a story of people who you thought were evil actually being the victims, and the people you thought good being the evil.
Who did you think was good in this story? Traeger? Well, you might be tricked by him for 5 seconds, but that's about it. Or did you think that Wernicke was good? A Nazi scientist?
We were given villains with their own backstories, with their own morals and goals in the game. We were given patients with their own morals and goals in the game.
What are their goals? Walker wants to kill you. Traeger wants to kill you. The Wall Rider wants to kill you. The twins want to kill you. The priest doesn't want to kill you, but sends you to the Wall Rider who will probably kill you. Other variants either don't really care about you, ask you to save them, or want to kill you. Wernicke wants you to kill Billy so that he then will kill you.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. Intel has told us there are at least 7.
Okay, I already see one. Give him. Okay.
They're the same picture.
What about their morals? Well, most of them are insane, so they don't really have any, at least not that we know of. We know nothing about Billy. The priest is nuts and wants to spread the Wallrider gospel. Traeger does everything for the money and because he enjoys it, so there's that. Walker has some sense of duty as far as we can tell, so there is like one. The game tries to create an illusion that these encounters are special. Each character is unique, when in reality these are a bunch of psychos with nothing interesting to them. And a standard ghost thing, which by the way even shares animations with other characters. Which brings us to the point of how these interactions are played out.
One thing I think should be pointed out about this game is that it doesn't use jump scares every time it tries to get you. Instead, it puts pressure on you with AI.
You serious?
Gameplay is the most important part of any game since, well, it's a game. Not everyone might agree with it. Some could say that the story is equally important or even more important. Some focus on more abstract qualities like the overall vibe or experience a game provides. For me, gameplay always comes first. That doesn't mean I can't enjoy a story-driven game, but I appreciate tight, engaging mechanics far more than narrative alone. I will also include the game's technical qualities in here, like performance, bugs, glitches, etc. While this could have been a separate section, including it in the gameplay section also feels right, since any technical issues directly affect the gameplay experience. With that said, let's look at what Outlast brings to the table. Outlast is a horror walking simulator, similar to Amnesia, Penumbra, Soma. The developers openly cite Amnesia: The Dark Descent as a major inspiration. I think it's only fair then to compare the two occasionally, which I already did a couple of times. As I said earlier, I was introduced to both games around the same time, but the impression each left was wildly different. In my opinion, Amnesia is superb to Outlast in every aspect: story, gameplay, atmosphere. Well, the music is equally good. Amnesia opened up to me the whole world of new age horror games and left me with wanting more, so I went into the world of custom mods for Amnesia and other games. Outlast, on the other hand, made me hope this was not the future of the genre, but I digress. Your character can walk, run, jump, including light parkour, crouch, open or close doors. He can do that slowly or quickly. He can also pick up items like keys, documents, batteries. He can lean left and right and turn around while sprinting. A move accompanied by a loud sound effect for some reason. Is it like just a special effect, or is it supposed to mimic a sound of your jacket waving? You also have a camera recorder which you can use to see the world through it. While using it, you will see the camera's UI, and overall vision will have darkish greenish filter over the screen. With the camera recorder, you also have an option to turn night vision on. This is the main use of the camera. You can also zoom. While using night vision, the charge will deplete. Using the camera without night vision does not affect the battery. If you observe different events while having the camera on, your character will take notes. He will not react in any way without the camera. That would be all. The game features 3 standard difficulties: normal, hard and nightmare, and an additional one: insane. The higher the difficulty is, the fewer hits the enemies require to kill you. On nightmare, Walker and Traeger kill you in one hit. You also get less batteries and can carry less. Insane difficulty also features permadeath. The game starts from the beginning when you die. Difficulty change also usually comes with changes in AI. Enemies become stronger and wiser, being able to spot the player more easily, search for the player more thoroughly, etc. As far as I can tell, Outlast does none of this. Enemy behavior seems identical across all settings. The difficulty curve is purely artificial: less health, fewer resources. The intro establishes that we have no option to defend ourselves, only run or hide away. This feels a bit odd because Miles is around 185 meters tall, clearly fit and surprisingly capable in cutscenes. Yet he panics when a half-dead inmate slowly approaches him. The game also tries to explain why Miles does not pick up any weapons to defend himself, but in a half-assed manner. For instance, when the doctor dies, his scissors fall down, so the question why Miles does not use it doesn't pop up, but surely he could have picked something up to defend himself. Come to think of it, we see army trucks outside and military people dead inside. Someone even dies right on us. Yet Miles doesn't try to search for any gun or anything at all. We know they had guns since there are bullet holes. If inmates took them, why do none of them use them? If the priest removed them, how did he manage that alone? Are all of them just broken? There is no logic here, but let's say it's typical video game logic. Overall gameplay is similar to Amnesia, in a sense that you can't defend yourself. It's directly inspired by Amnesia. Some claim this gameplay formula to be superior for horror games. The fact that you can't defend yourself makes it scarier. I do not agree with that sentence. It all depends on the execution. Survival horror with limited resources can work just as fine, but what do other reviewers say?
One of the greatest things a horror game can do is put you in a situation where you feel hopeless. I mean, how hopeless can you be if you have the 14th Amendment under your belt at all times? Horror games that have a combat system are not bad in the slightest. Like, if anything, those moments where you can't fight back are intensified, such as the Beneviento household in Resident Evil Village. However, imagine a game where you are hopeless the entire time, and that's Outlast.
Feeling of hopelessness is a primary source of fear. I agree, but isn't that statement a bit basic? Does it mean that the more hopeless the situation is, the scarier it is? Let's make a game where you get jumped by 1,000 monkeys all the time and can't defend yourself. Will it be scary? In Silent Hill 2 you can defend yourself, but in my opinion it's scarier than Outlast. You even mentioned that games like Resident Evil have feeling of horror amplified in moments where you can't defend yourself. But if you're feeling hopeless the entire time, it's somehow better? What about items we can interact with? Well, you can pick up keys, press switches, turn valves. Obviously, we can close and open doors, and there are these blocks we can move to block an entrance. These are placed only in specific cases. I think you use 2 or 3 throughout the whole game, and one of them is optional. Unlike Amnesia, Outlast does not have ragdoll items that you can just pick up and use, which is a shame since that mechanic brings a lot of variety to rather dull walking simulator gameplay. From obvious usage of such items in puzzles to creative interactions, even simple exploration becomes more engaging. Speaking of puzzles, Outlast doesn't have any. We'll talk about level design a bit later, but closest thing Outlast has to a puzzle is when you need to turn some kind of lever to then turn another one, or find a key or switches which are always placed nearby. The game also always tells you exactly what to do, so there is no actual deduction required. Take the sewers, for example. Once we get there, we see a flooded ladder, a path forward, and a map on the wall. Once you proceed, guess who falls right on your head? Bloody Chris Walker. Even with Chris roaming around, you could check the place and naturally discover 2 valves which you could turn, after which you could find that the water has been drained. It's an easy assumption to make, since you recently shut off 2 valves from huge pipes. A simple environmental hint like a note, graffiti, anything could have guided the player naturally. Well, no, you just get a task update right at the beginning of the level. There is no possibility to immerse yourself in the world, you just get to ride along the way.
Amnesia still scares me with the fact that you have to run and hide while enemies break down doors, but it feels more like a creepy puzzle game than anything else. Couple that with the fact that the puzzles can get reasonably difficult, and if you can't get past some of them, it's easy to just give up and stop playing. Other games have similar problems that get in the way of scares.
So the gameplay gets in the way of scares? Why not just watch a movie then? Amnesia's masterful design gets people scared even during puzzles, even in places where there are no enemies or jump scares, just with its atmosphere.
Do I need to hide? Is he coming for me? Oh, we're cool. Real cool. I'm just
Minding my own business here. Oh god, is he coming down the stairs? Dolphin dive.
Teach their own, I guess, but like, how does the fact Outlast does not have any meat in the gameplay part makes Outlast a good horror game? Movement feels okay at first, but something feels off. The game has a parkour mechanic. Miles can climb and jump over stuff, but in order to execute those actions, he often needs to be in an exact spot. Otherwise, he just won't do it. In scripted places, Miles will also straight up get teleported to the right place.
The gameplay feels very fluid and allows you to respond quickly and naturally.
In the same video, you say that the game has issues with doors and jumps.
During a chase, running through a door frame and closing it behind you becomes ambiguous, and sometimes the game thinks you're trying to close the door in front of you, trapping you in the same room with your pursuer, who then kills you immediately! Additionally, the jumping mechanics are fickle. Occasionally you'll jump to vault over things or climb up a ventilation shaft, but it might take 2 or 3 tries before the game registers your intention.
So I'm not sure what you call fluid. Running does feel okay, like a feeling of running, I guess. Also, I'm not sure what's so natural about closing doors right in front of someone's face because they can't open them. Another problem with movement is that the character gets stuck if you crash into any object with which there is no pre-planned interaction. Here's what I mean. While playing, my character would often get stuck, and I couldn't even understand why immediately. The problem was that there was a small object at the bottom that prevented me from moving. Something like a table leg or a small bar or something else. Those things make this a worse case than it sounds. The first problem is that you don't have any animation if the object is not interactive. Miles will automatically climb over certain obstacles if you jump near them, and he has a linear animation at corners. But if he collides with something else, he simply holds with no visual feedback. And also this place where if you run into this part of the table, Miles sort of falls onto it for some reason. There is a body nearby, so maybe he stumbles upon it, but he doesn't have this animation if you run directly through the body, and it doesn't happen in other places, only this one place. It's probably a bug, just a weird one. In any case, due to the lack of proper animation, you might not even understand what is happening when you get stuck. The game is quite dark, so it is possible you won't even see the object that prevents you from moving. The second problem is that objects do not have the best hitboxes. The game frequently assumes you have collided with something even when you clearly haven't. It gets worse. If you run into any NPC, your character will have no reaction, except when there is a scripted scene. Neutral NPCs will just walk through you, or stand still with no reaction either. Hostile NPCs will hit or kill you, of course, but they have a bit of a delay or a cooldown. So what happens is they just kinda stand there, walking into you. Combined with your attempts to run past them, it all looks very silly. Combine this with the small object issue I mentioned before, and you get situations where you're stuck on debris while an enemy robotically nudges into you, waiting to swing again. For example, here I get stuck by a small table that I didn't see in the dark. The enemy kinda gets between this table and the exit, so I try to run past it. They have a small cooldown, so they don't attack me immediately, but there is no reaction whatsoever, so I end up just running into them. Looks really awkward. The game constantly imposes a fake sense of danger. Early on, you climb scaffolding that looks like you could fall off. In reality, invisible walls protect you everywhere. Well, almost everywhere. For some reason, this place does not have an invisible wall, while every other part does. Hatches have invisible walls too. If you look at Outlast Steam page, one of the features the game promises is unpredictable enemies. Players cannot know when and from where one of the asylum's terrifying inhabitants will finally catch up to them. Let's then look at how unpredictable they truly are. Did you notice that the enemies never find you if you hide under a bed or in a locker? If you had at least 2 hiding spots in a room, the enemies will always check the wrong one. They will find you if there is only one hiding spot though. The only time I got caught in these things when there were multiple hiding places was when the game decided that I was seen hiding or I wasn't supposed to be hiding in that moment. We will discuss sound design later, but the obvious cue for whether you are in danger or not is the music. If the chase music is playing, you hide and the music does not stop, you need to run away, since they will find you. Which also ties up to the fake sense of danger I've mentioned. As soon as you understand this pattern, any tension evaporates.
Enemy spotted.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Actually, let's cover NPCs and enemies in general right here. The AI is overly scripted. Each interaction is crafted for you. They always act the same way and within a predefined zone. Let me show you an example to explain what I'm talking about. Did you notice? The enemy chases me and once I'm out of their field, they lose any interest. Returning re-triggers their aggression instantly. It looks funnier because the enemy doesn't have any reaction to me running away, and as soon as I get past the wall, they lose interest, even if they should not possibly see me living through the wall. Some enemies have some scripted lines once you get past their set piece, but it doesn't add much. They don't acknowledge your escape, they don't search logically, they simply flip between active and idle states. All of the interactions also look really weird. They just sort of walk towards you with bad animations. Should you get close, they punch and then just stand there or just keep walking towards you, waiting for their attack cooldown to reset. Enemies also appear to be magnetically drawn towards you. In the water level, you need to get to the staircase, which is located in the middle. Our friend obviously is patrolling the area. The issue is that he's not actually patrolling, he's just slowly walking towards you while pretending not to know where you are. Or stuff like this.
Puts pressure on you with AI.
In this scene, Walker is chasing you. The only way out of the room is through the vent. You hop in, hop out on the other side. Walker breaks the door and the chase continues. And what happens if you don't jump out the vent? Walker will just stand there. He's hiding from your view, but you can hear him just standing. He's effectively paused.
The chase scenes are rarely scripted, meaning they're different each time.
Wait, what? Did we play the same game? They are exactly the same each time. Variants run after you, you run away from them. You escape to a safe place, they go away. He kinda mentions later in this video that AI is shit, but just glosses over it.
But I've had my experience with Outlast 2 exploiting the AI.
The overly scripted and overall poor AI creates a plateau of issues. Enemies often act nonsensically. I already mentioned the fact that they are unable to find you in a locker, so let's check other issues, as the game puts you on a railroad and it expects you to sit tight and enjoy. Once you try to have a unique approach, it breaks. In the wall rider chase near the end, you are clearly intended to run. The game cues you in with the music and the level layout that this is an action set piece. If you try hiding, the wall rider will always find you. Well, he's a nanomachine ghost thing. It's okay for him to see you, is what you might think, but there is another interaction with the wall rider later and you can hide from him and he will lose sight of you. Let's have fun with these folks. In this scene, the tied down inmate begins screaming, summoning nearby variants. They break down the doors and chase you. The script in this scene requires you to move the near block to open the door and run from them. I tried waiting for them and run in the direction I came from. Once I got into the vent I came from, the AI just stood there, waiting for me to come back. They were still in a chase mode after I got away from them, since this is not what the AI expected. Besides, look at how he punches me through the wall. That's not the only issue with the AI. They are also very inconsistent with what they can see and what they can't. Sometimes they see you, sometimes they don't. Here, I was hiding in the fireplace and Walker saw me, but when I hid under a table in a very similar situation, he did not see me. Tables in this game are designed in such a way that it should be obvious that I'm hiding there, and yet the enemy ignores me. Maybe the game does not recognize a fireplace as a quote-unquote hiding place, the same way it does with lockers and beds. I'm not sure.
He can run almost as fast as you, and he's surprisingly smart for a big fella.
Is he fast? Is he smart? Alright. Here, Walker noticed me and started chasing me. It's a straight line, and even though it's dark in some places, it's not like I have anywhere to go but forward. But what happened was Walker was chasing me until he just didn't. He was still going in my direction, so it doesn't even seem like he lost me, but for some reason he stopped running. Like, look at this shit. He's running after me and is like 2 meters away, and then he just stops after I jumped over the bed. This is as far as his script allows him. Maybe he got tired. Judging by the fact that he drops on your head in this place and first acts non-aggressive, and the fact that there are a bunch of rooms with beds open, and that it's a very dark place, I think the idea was for me to hide here, which is why he's not so aggressive. These problems happen everywhere. Remember the video I showed when Walker found me in a locker because there was only one? He didn't kill me and I ran away. The funny part is that he didn't even chase me, and minutes later he again saw me and started chasing me. I ran into the same room and just turned the boat. Suddenly the chase music ended and Walker stopped chasing me again. Although it's the same room as before, same situation. I didn't even have the door closed this time. He didn't lose me. My guess is that because I turned the wall, the game sorta reset him and he started patrolling again, which happens a lot. In this same level, once you turn the first lever and start going back, Chris Walker will be waiting for you outside the door, magically going in your direction. The game just spawns him near you and draws towards you to have a scary moment where you need to hide from Chris in a room with no escape. The worst case are these guys. You pick up a camera, turn around, and the psychos are coming towards you. This scene combines all of the issues I mentioned before. You're supposed to run past them, which results in a clumsy body collision and hoping not to get stuck in their hitboxes. Once you succeed, your only option is to run. If you try to hide anywhere, they will find you, even if they didn't see where you hid. Fine. You get away, but what if you try to return? Let's see. For starters, the chase music doesn't even stop once you're out of danger, so it just keeps playing while you can just stand there. The music ends only when you climb higher. In this particular case, I got so far away from them that they were still in the first room when I was already standing on the lockers. The enemies in this game are slow as fuck. As soon as I get in their vicinity, they rush me again. Once I get on the locker, they leave. I get down, he rushes me again. Even when his back is turned and the variant shouldn't notice me, he just starts running towards me. The locker mechanic is something the game over relies on. You learn to hide from the very first hostile encounter. Do not try to fight. Hiding is the only option. At the time of the game's release, this was somewhat unique and fresh. But even by the end of this game, you get bored, as it's always the same thing. You hide, wait for the enemy to leave, and then exit the locker. There isn't much sense of danger. Usually you can tell when it's safe to leave either via the music cue or just in general. Obviously today the mechanic is overused and it feels outdated. This is kinda hard to argue and based mostly on personal feelings, but I don't know. It's really boring to just sit in lockers in Outlast, probably because there is zero tension. The enemy doesn't even kill you if they catch you. You can also open the locker at the right time so that the enemy doesn't catch you and you can just run away since they are slow as fuck. We covered hiding. What else can you do to escape the enemies? You can close doors. But doors behave oddly. Enemies usually cannot open a closed door, even if you close it right in front of their faces. They must break it down, taking multiple hits. Even Chris Walker, who rips heads off clean, needs 3 hits to break flimsy wooden door. If you're skilled enough, and by skilled enough I mean not extremely bad because it's relatively easy, but you can just run away once they break the door down, which is a better alternative than waiting in a locker. But wait, some characters can open doors, sometimes, and some cannot. Honestly, I don't know why. Are they just too fucking dumb? They don't know what a doorknob is?
Chris is really just like any basic enemy, but faster and smarter and kills you in one hit.
Chris is so fucking slow that you can give him a head start and he still will not catch you. He's only faster than the twins because they fucking walk. I also don't know where the idea that he's smart comes from. Speaking of slowness, the Wall Rider is shown to be a lightning fast entity capable of massacring soldiers in seconds. We also see him wandering across the asylum, still being extremely fast. But what happens when you reach his chase sequence? The dude is slow as fuck. What happened here?
You start the game with the same abilities you end the game with. Your enemies, on the other hand, get increasingly more complex. They go from basic bumbling enemies who can't figure out how to open doors to sprinting 2 feet directly behind you. As the game goes on, it continues to throw more and more enemies at you, and the enemies go from loud and dumb to smart, calculating, and relentless.
The first enemy we encounter is Chris Walker, who is coincidentally the second to last enemy we encounter. By now I think you can tell how simple he is. He just runs after you and punches you. If he doesn't see you, he patrols the area while magically being drawn towards you. Then we get the twins, who just slowly walk towards you or patrol the area. Then we have Traeger, who runs after you and punches you or patrols the area. Finally, we have the Wall Rider, who runs after you and punches you. Oh, and random variants sprinkled in between who act the same way. How are the enemies getting more complex? If anything, they are getting dumber because the twins have the dumbest AI in the game. Most NPCs don't react to you at all unless a script demands it. For example, in this place we get a jump scare from an inmate, then another inmate grabs him and throws out, coincidentally saving us. But if you try to interact with this very dangerous inmate in any way, there is nothing. He doesn't attack you the way he attacked the previous guy. Same goes for any other NPC who's behind bars or a door. They will not react to you if there is no such script. Or this guy that tries to reach you through the cracks. He doesn't do anything. Even if you close the door, he just stands there with the same animation. It looks really stupid. Enemies always spawn in the same places and behave the same way. On the other hand, games like Amnesia and Alien Isolation have enemies change their locations to provide new experience. Outlast does none of it. It's a one and done. Well, maybe not. Maybe the enemy encounters are different in this game.
Almost every encounter with Chris is different, and he shows up more than any other enemy in the game.
You go in depth about almost each encounter and how to complete it. A guideline for new players on how to pass each so unique encounter with our friend Chris. Lovely stuff. What's your guide for the first encounter? Chris is chasing you, run away from him. Okay. What about the second one? Chris is chasing you, run away from him. Huh. The third, run away from him. Okay, what about the more complex level? Juke him and run away from him. Wait, they are all the same? The end result is the enemies do not feel like real beings hunting you, but rather like theme park animatronics you get scared by on roller coasters. Which brings us to jump scares. This game's bread and butter. Even in the first 10 minutes alone, you get two major ones. YouTube videos of Outlast are often consist of a compilation of scary moments, and this one and the one right after show up constantly. Hell, this is the first minute into IGN's review.
I can safely say that Outlast made me jump out of my chair more often in its 4-hour descent into hell than any other game ever has.
And this is how it ends.
It'll fade.
At this point, it's redundant to explain why jump scares are a cheap tool, but like any tool, they can be effective depending on execution. Outlast jump scares suck. I won't argue if they're scary or not, since it's subjective. Some of them are placed very obviously and you can see them from a mile away. Others are indeed a bit creative. The issue I have with jump scares in this game is that they make no sense. Like here, a dead inmate falls down when you open a door and you get a scream. Who screams? His lips do not even move. After a minute we get the next jump scare. The second famous clip everyone uses to show how scary this game is. And it also highlights the main issue with any scary element in this game. They are all overly scripted and break any logic. Let me show you. I make it obvious here that I'm looking around before going through a crack and I can see that there is nobody behind me. The corridors have good visibility and it's not like Walker can hide somewhere. And I saw where he'd gone just a moment ago. Once I try to go through the crack, Walker appears behind and grabs me. Considering his other appearances down the line, he is the most obvious example of teleportation powers. And you could argue that I'm breaking the game on purpose here, since I know the jump scare is coming. But this is actually something that happened to me in my normal playthrough. I was walking and looking around, actually investigating like a reporter would probably do. And before going into the crack, I made a sort of 360 turn to look around to see if I missed anything. Internal logic and immersion are thrown out the window in order to have a boogity-boo moment. What happens if you go with your back in a place where a jump scare is? The game just spins you. This kills any replayability. The jump scares are set in stone, even if you know they are coming. You can't avoid them. Well, with some you can just miss them, which doesn't stop them from happening. Through my playthroughs, I sometimes miss the sound jump scares, like the one with a screen at the beginning of the game, which only left me to wonder what the hell is going on. But what do others think?
In addition to that, there are certain jump scares that only happen within the game once you turn on the night vision on your camera.
No. All the jump scares happen anyway. You can't avoid them even if you try. You might miss them because your camera was turned off, but the jump scare will still occur.
Outlast has some tasteful jump scares. Now, it does fall into the cliche of loud noises and sporadic movements from time to time, but it never solely relies on that.
The first jump scare you get in the game is a hanging body that doesn't have a head and it screams. What else does it rely on besides sporadic movements and loud noises? Hell, the jump scare you show falls exactly under that category. It's a dude shaking you and screaming.
Other times you'll have subtle jump scares, like this guy peeking over while you crawl through.
Yeah, so fucking subtle.
And the greatest thing is, Outlast never did the same jump scare twice. It's always something different and unexpected.
I will not argue that most of them pursue the same thing, but here's just an example of two different jump scares from the game. They're the fucking same. What the fuck are you talking about? Jump scares is a touchy subject since it can be hard to evaluate them. What is qualified as a good jump scare? It might be different for everyone. Should it be unexpected or just scary? A term which is vague in its own right. Some even hate jump scares overall. I think a good jump scare is the one that does not break the world. It doesn't break your immersion and doesn't feel forced. A jump scare that feels natural. Such jump scares can offer value beyond your scary moment. You could have appreciation for them even in subsequent views or playthroughs. A good example of such jump scares is in a TV series The Haunting of Hill House. I will avoid spoilers. If you haven't watched it, give it a try. But there is a jump scare in the second half of the show and it feels like the whole show was building up to it. It also occurs naturally and not only does it frighten you, it also leaves very strong emotions. In Outlast case, I think I highlighted the main issue with its jump scares. They are forced. And their only purpose is to cheaply scare you with loud noises and flashy images. Which doesn't mean they're all bad, there are some highlights. The one with a guy jumping at you from the wheelchair is neat, since it's the first variant you see up close and you think he might be dangerous, only for him not to react to you. But once you're coming back, he actually jumps you. Good subversion. The more subtle ones are also good. I also actually enjoyed the one I showed before, when you get the camcorder back. It's actually a fun sequence if played how you expect it to play. But yeah, certainly not a fan overall. Let's take a close look at the camcorder. It lets you zoom and use night vision, Outlast's signature mechanic across the series. The creators cite a video Rubber Johnny as one of the main inspirations of the game's visual, which is similar to how the game's night vision looks. Due to the relevance of the camcorder, some reviewers categorize Outlast as found footage genre.
Outlast breaks with these expectations. It's a horror series that not only references found footage movies, but makes the process of generating the footage that'll one day be found when the blood is dry the mechanical and thematic anchor around which the entire game would be designed.
Outlast is a series of video games and comic books centered around the antics of the Murkoff Corporation, as told through the people who find the footage in found footage movies.
Found footage genre is a movie genre where it simulates the movie being shot on a cheap camera by someone who experiences the events firsthand. This gives a movie a sense of realism, while also giving an option to create a movie with a smaller budget. Something like Cloverfield and The Blair Witch are the genre's staple. I remember kids believing that the Blair Witch might have actually been the real footage that was somehow shown in theaters. Kids are stupid, but still, shows you how immersive it can be. Outlast has nothing to do with it though. The only thing that even slightly connects the game to lost footage is the fact that you have a camcorder in the game, but it's not actual lost footage. You're playing and recording it yourself. In the movies, the cut we see is the thing that was supposedly filmed. In the game, you don't need to film everything. It's optional, and even if you do, the end cut would be nonsensical. Let's check that and cut all the quote-unquote shot content from my first playthrough. See? Doesn't look like a movie, does it? The character will not proceed if he loses a camera, as he can't see in the dark, which is relevant for one section of the game. That moment feels really forced, like you don't have an option, you just must retrieve the camera, and the game blatantly tells you to do so. As I mentioned before, Miles only takes notes when the camera is on. But why? The notes are written as his personal thoughts, not collected evidence. When the weirdest shit happens, he films it, and you can read his reactions in the notes. Justifiably weirded out by this shit. But if you don't film it, Miles has no reaction whatsoever, apart from heavily breathing sometimes. They really wanted a mechanic where you have a reason to film all this stuff, but it doesn't make sense. On paper, it sounds interesting, an interesting usage of a camera that offers you some immersion and also might encourage replayability, but it's kinda dumb. The notes are supposed to be written records of Miles's thoughts and feelings while trying to understand his current situation. But immersion breaks as soon as you think, how the hell does he take notes in these situations? I suppose they could be taken sort of metaphorically, more like an inner look into Miles's inner thoughts, but then why does he need a camcorder to be turned on, and why there is a writing sound? The notes are utterly redundant too. Here's a note of Miles calling a big guy he just met a big fucking guy. Here Miles finds a dead body in an elevator, and the note depicts how he found a dead body in an elevator. The notes share some additional information about other characters, but as it's supposed to be written by Miles, he supposedly finds this information in the documents he finds in the asylum. You know, the ones we also can read. You get the idea. But here's an example. In a note about Chris Walker, Miles mentions that Chris is ex-military and served in Afghanistan. How does he know it? Well, he reads it in a file that he found, so you read it too. We already covered Miles's character, so you already know that the notes give almost no insight into Miles's own character. No backstory, nothing really, some small bits. Not to mention the fact that the camera seemingly disappears when Miles is clinging to the ledge, which could be omitted as video game logic, but then Miles loses his camcorder in exact same situation, which feels strange. Performance-wise, the game runs fine. My current setup is nowhere near modern high-end PC, but my specs also did not exist when this game came out. And I didn't face any stutters, performance issues, or anything of that matter. I also don't remember having any issues with the game when it initially came out, but the game still has bugs even 12 years later, mainly with AI. Now, no game is perfectly bug-free, of course. That's not the criticism. The criticism is that the AI itself is shit, and the bugs only highlight its weaknesses. For example, stuff like this can also happen. Walker just got stuck in a tree. This is also the moment which probably scared me the most, by the way. I knew what to expect in this place, but because Walker got stuck, the sound blasted unexpectedly. Walker was hitting the tree for the rest of this location, and it ended the moment I climbed the boxes. What's funny is not the fact that he got bugged, but that it ended so suddenly. I returned to check what's the matter, and I could not find Walker here. For those of you who didn't play the game, the place where I'm standing right now is the next time you meet Walker. He comes out of this side and chases you, but he's not there. The game just despawned him until the next time you meet him, which I think is a worse issue and highlights the whole problem with enemies in this game. They are not real. They are spawned and despawned all the time in order to scare you. By the way, I'm not sure what the intention was, but it felt like I was supposed to run forward to just barely be able to get into the crack in the wall. But on the hardest difficulty, Walker one-shots you, so it's impossible to get in the hole in time. He will kill you. So I had to loop around to get enough distance, which I think is an issue in itself. The fact that I'm so much faster than the enemies in this game. But the whole sequence felt weird. I don't know. On lower difficulties he just kinda hits you and stands there. For comparison, Alien Isolation offers a masterclass in AI design. The alien feels intelligent, unpredictable, and alive. The end result is obvious. It's widely praised as one of the best AI systems in gaming. Well, Alien came out after Outlast, so it's a bit unfair, right? Fear also has good AI, inferior to Alien but still very good. Fear also uses a lot of clever tricks to convince you that the enemies are a lot smarter than they actually are. Enemies in Fear constantly communicate among each other. They coordinate during action. They explain their strategy and share info when they're searching the area. All of this creates more immersion. You actually can believe that these are real soldiers who are trying to do their job and kill you, and not just a bunch of pixels programmed to minutely chase you. I already covered what Outlast can offer. At the best, Walker will call you a little pig, and that's that. But most of the time the enemies will just stop caring once you're past their set piece. Since we are covering set pieces, I suppose it's time we talk about level design. Outlast has two types of levels. Most are straightforward corridors with a few side rooms containing batteries or documents. The other type is the hub room with branching hallways format, where you avoid an enemy while searching for vaults, keys or switches. The corridor levels don't leave much to analyze. They are linear, filled with closed doors and blocked paths by objects that are obviously impossible to move. During these parts of a game you either just traverse from point A to point B in a straight line, again gathering items from time to time, or you run through the corridors during chase sequences. The issue is that there is no variety at all. During chase sequences you don't have an option to hide, so you can only run. And if you don't know exactly where to go, you're winding up back at your last checkpoint, which are generously spread, but still. The fact that you don't have any option apart from running into enemies and hoping for the best in case you made the wrong turn quickly turns the whole thing into a rather frustrating experience than a scary one. To the game's credit, it also makes the intended path obvious. It even uses blood trails as equivalent to yellow paint markers. You also usually can find a map at the beginning of most levels to help you guide through them, which is also why I was kind of baffled by the whole tasks thing you get. The game seems just better without them. I don't need to be reminded where to go when I don't have any option to begin with. As for the second type of levels, well, those are typically built with one big room in the middle and a bunch of corridors with smaller rooms. And you need to either get something in other rooms or turn something on. You get such an example in the first level. You navigate a dark basement to turn on two gas pumps and then pull a lever while evading one variant. Although there isn't much variety in how you tackle it, you at least choose which pump to start first. I'm not a fan of those type of levels either, due to AI issues in this game and the other issues like the fact that they respawn enemies near you once you're done with the first valve. Traeger's level is an exception. Once you set yourself free from the chair Traeger tied you up to, a mutilated variant calls us and explains that Traeger and him were formerly Markov executives before Traeger went insane. Then he starts shouting, telling us that Traeger is coming, which is a cue for you to hide. A good detail is that if you don't hide, Traeger will silently approach you and attack, leaving the executive tied there. If you do hide, then he kills the executive and then goes to your room and becomes pissed off that you escaped. Back to the level is the same scenario as your usual Outlast level. You need to get a key to use the elevator. The difference is that you get a large map. You get an entire area with large rooms, places to hide, shortcuts, dead ends, and sites of Traeger's victims. You get some variety in how to tackle this level. None of Outlast's other sequences touch Traegers. It's the pinnacle of the game's atmosphere, mechanics, and level design, mixing Outlast's on-railed style of scares with some space for player expression. There is a reason he's the highlight of the game. The other reason is that he's once and done. He will not be coming back, unlike others. Overall, the level design is uninspiring. Mostly linear corridors with 1-2 side rooms, repetitive layouts, and no room for creativity. They don't feel like real environments, just ghost trains moving you from set piece to set piece, with the beds and tables set conveniently below the vent, so you could use them to climb up. It's unfortunate the game doesn't have any moving objects, so you could spot such places from a mile away. You can see the rails everywhere. You don't believe in this place's actual existence, like when you need to gather fuses to restart anything. It breaks the immersion because why would someone take them out and scatter in the first place? They're also always on some weird plate. I don't know why, like, is it a sacrifice? It's a weird visual, which brings us to the next topic. In this part, we'll cover both the technical graphics and the broader visual language of the game, character designs, environments, lighting, cinematography, everything that shapes how Outlast looks and feels. Visually, Outlast holds up surprisingly well. For a 2013 indie title, the presentation is genuinely impressive. The picture quality is strong, textures look solid, and the overall atmosphere benefits enormously from the lighting system. The shading and lighting does wonders for this game's atmosphere. Flickering bulbs, harsh shadows, reflections in pools of blood. The interplay of light and darkness does wonders for the mood. Even today, many scenes look striking. Sure, some character models look iffy when inspected closely and textures occasionally clip through doors, but for the most part you can tell the developers poured a lot of effort into making Mount Massive Asylum feel grimy, rotten, and alive. The asylum has a lot of character to it. You begin in relatively intact administrative halls, before descending deeper, prison blocks, the sewers, the male ward, the long abandoned female ward. With each step, the building looks more decayed, more violated, as though the madness slowly infects the architecture itself. I will say the visual storytelling is mostly on point, at least on the surface. Corridors have bullet holes and blood stains, piss stains on the carpets everywhere, pissed urinals, peeling walls, roaches crawling over crusted gore. The attention to detail is awesome. We see dead bodies with their guts turned inside out. Something bad clearly went down in this place. And we can find an explanation for most of the horrible stuff we see. Like, the heads that you find in the beginning could be the heads Walker placed, as he likes to separate heads from bodies, although it's unclear when he would find time to store these heads here, and why would he place them carefully on a shelf. And don't they look too clean? I mean, Walker rips heads off, but these look like they were rather cut, but still, it's something. Or a bloodstain we find in the sewers, with only a leg left. We saw or heard the wall rather earlier, so obviously he was the one who did this. You get the impression this place has been left to rot for ages. But the problem is that the shock wears off fast. The game is roughly 6 hours long, and within the first hour you've already seen the full spectrum of gore it has to offer. After a while, the endless guts, disemboweled corpses and screaming variants blur together. Yes, the asylum is a disgusting, horrible place, but the game shows its entire hand almost immediately. Levels get repetitive too. Administrative block is the first location, so it's all fresh and new. The first location is quite the tone setter. You see blood here and there, a few unsettling inmates, hints of what's coming. The room with the military guy is the first major reveal. Bodies everywhere, guts inside out, and a man stuck on a stick. The lightning behind him is amazing. He's barely able to speak, but he warns you, although even without him saying anything you could imagine what's coming. It's effective, until you realize the game never really escalates beyond that point. There are interesting locations to come, sure, but visually it's just more of the same. You already seen dozens of bodies and a lot of gore, and it's the first 10 minutes of the game. In the sewers, you can find a room filled with corpses and flies. It looks horrible. In a good way. Miles even takes a note on how horrible the smell is. The problem is, this place does not feel any special because by now you've already seen all the shit. And this is the end of this third location in the game. Out of 8, it's a middle point at the best, and the game has already run out of surprises. A game that puts so much emphasis on shock value. Prison Block looks slightly different, the sewers are slightly different, the mail world is slightly different, but all of them rest on the same foundation: gore, filth, and rebelling inmates. That's about it. You get a breath of fresh air once you get outside, as the area looks vastly different from the rest of the game, which brings us to the core issue. But before we get to that, the lighting in this area is fantastic. It's pitch black except for a few dim bulbs flickering far in the distance, a great way to guide you where to go. You are overcome by a sense of dread as you understand that you do not know what is hiding in the shadows. Thunder illuminates the scene for a split second, creating an incredible effect. For a moment, Outlast feels alive again, but only for a moment. And even in this moment, the actual level is still just a straight corridor, masked by an open area. A good mask, but a mask nonetheless. Once you step back indoors, the last tiny bit of novelty evaporates. The female ward should be vastly different since we are told it's been abandoned for ages. And yes, it does look aged, but not in a meaningful way. The prison block didn't look maintained either, and neither did the sewers, or the hallways, or really anything except maybe the top floors at the very beginning and the underground lab. You notice how often assets are reused, all the pickups look the same. Sometimes you need to find a key to open a door, and it's always the exact same key. The blocks you can move to block the doors, they also look the same. What else can you find? Well, you need batteries which are scattered everywhere around the asylum. Near the batteries you can often find broken cameras lying around. Sometimes there are no batteries and just cameras, as if this is an explanation for the battery's existence. But why there are so many cameras? There is a radio in one of the chambers. I thought this was a horrible place with insane people. But I guess they can use radio. The skins are reused all the time. Most of the variants have the same 2-3 faces. The severe heads in that early room, they are literally the same head model placed next to each other. And it's not something you need to pay attention to notice. They are right next to each other. Even some of the variants that interact with you have reused skins. What about the skins that aren't reused? Well, obviously we have Chris Walker, who is used in so many advertisements for the game. The creators have probably been very proud of him, and it's a fine design. It's well recognized by now. Him and Traeger seem to have had the most care put into their designs. They have a lot of details, and through notes you can find more info on why they look the way they do, but they still look just like typical variants with small changes. Walker is a normal variant but big. Traeger is a standard variant but scissors. The twins are normal variants but two. Billy Hope, who is the main antagonist of the game, is just a normal variant. And the Wall Rider even has the same animations as Chris Walker, and he's just a ghost thing. The visual repetition also creates a practical issue. You often cannot tell who is hostile and who isn't. Hostile and neutral variants look identical. There is no tell on who will attack and who won't. It can be a positive, obviously.
There were lots of moments where I thought I was going to die, until I realized the crazies were just fucking with me. I can't say I've ever had this situation in a survival horror game before. Enemies generally want you dead, or they don't want any trouble. Having a gray area in which you don't know if you're safe or not really establishes that you can't afford to let your guard down.
That is true. The fact that you don't know if someone will try to kill you or not creates constant tension. Like the time you get in the prison cell and you see a whole bunch of variants, you feel dread. You then discover that the variants do not attack you, only to be surprised when they do attack you. Their lack of motivation can also easily be explained by the fact that they're insane. But let's be honest, it's just a cop-out. The problem with this approach is that the variants that are not hostile do not react to you at all. They're just animatronics moving around. Even the characters that do speak to you will just play their piece no matter your action. This guy talks to you, and if you just walk away from him, he'll just keep talking into empty space. Another issue is that sometimes you are left to wonder what the hell is going on, as you might get hit by an enemy that you thought was not hostile. In the prison section, most of the variants are indifferent to you, but this guy comes out and attacks you. He does it slowly, he doesn't run towards you and doesn't say anything. In the dark, there is a good chance he'll hit you in the back, and you won't even understand where the damage is coming from. By the way, what is even the expected reaction in this section? I realized that he was dangerous and ran back, but he just walked back in the cell. Once I start approaching, he comes back out with the same fucking animation. You could say that this is more of a gameplay problem, but my gripe with it is that there is no visual indication whatsoever. They all look the same, and their animations are the same for every character. Animations are another weak spot. They are very robust. Reuse is fine, every game does it, but in Outlast it often breaks immersion because the animations don't match the emotional intensity the scene wants to convey. If two enemies run the same way, it doesn't really matter since, well, it's running. There's not much variety you can do anyway. Even though they fuck up here as well, because Traeger sometimes looks like he's floating because he's kind of walking, but the game expects him to walk fast. I don't know, it looks weird sometimes. But look at this guy, he comes out screaming some gibberish at you. After that, he immediately attacks and runs after you. If you look at him, he has the standard door opening animation. It's very calm. As he slowly opens the door and then politely closes it, he screams at you and I presume he aggressively wants to kill you. Not even for a second do I believe that this is a real insane inmate who wants me dead. This is just a movie playing out to scare me. And look at his mouth. Does it even look like he's screaming? Lip sync overall in this game is not that good.
Yes, his tongue and his liver. Yours. Mine.
The body movement animation also do not transpire aggressiveness. What I'm trying to say is that a lot of characters in this game tend to scream, but their arms and body move rather calmly. Not only does this break the immersion, but from strictly gameplay point, it's really hard to tell who is the enemy and who isn't. The only cue you can rely on is the music. Let's talk about it then. Here we'll look at the soundtrack, sound effects, voice acting and mixing. Sound design is crucial in any game, of course, but in horror it becomes the spine of the entire experience. A good soundtrack can elevate tension, shape atmosphere and sometimes carry moments. Outlast sound design is generally strong, though not without some irritating shortcomings. Miles, for instance, has approximately 2 groans on rotation. He also starts breathing heavily in moments of danger and extreme violence. Voice acting goes from okay to amazing, with Richard Traeger unsurprisingly sitting at the top. The man understood the assignment.
You know, I'm a bit worried how much time you've been spending with Father Martin. I hope you haven't been letting him confuse you with all this holier-than-thou Bible thumping. No offense to the man, but I sometimes worry he might just be a little bit crazy.
Enemies often come with their own auditory warnings. Chris Walker has the fucking chain sound, the Wall Rider has his ghost thing sound, and it's a good way to warn you about incoming danger. It can work as a horror element. For example, when you hear the familiar sound but don't see the enemy, you already get on your toes. There's also a good navigation element because you might miss the enemy, like some clashes with Walker happen in dark places, and even if you don't see him, you know he's there. But the downside is that these cues can become confusing or outright annoying. The number of times you hear the same stuck chain sound through the game can drive you insane. You also might avoid or miss interactions with set NPCs, so these sound effects might look random, which can be the case with the Wall Rider. It's easy to miss him, but you still get his warning sound. I should stress that the issue is not that you might miss the Wall Rider. That's fine and could be even a neat detail for some. The issue is that you get a pretty loud sound when actually nothing happens. Or with Chris, you hear his cue, but then the music starts playing. Then it all dies down and then another piece of soundtrack starts playing. All of it in a matter of seconds. Same happens with jump scares. We already discussed the jump scares, so I'll keep it brief, but my god, is the sound on them terrible. Not only most of them do not make any sense, but they're also loud as fuck, with no reason whatsoever apart from a cheap boogary boo moment. But there are generally excellent atmospheric sounds in Outlast, subtle noises here and there that boost the atmosphere quite significantly, and it's not in your face ear damaging screams. OST is good. The soundtrack contains a total of 41 tracks. A variety of instruments is used with the prevalence of violins and drums, which are great for building tension and uncertainty. Some tracks carry a somber, fading quality that reflects Mount Master's decaying state. There are some vocal parts elevating the whole experience. Welcome to the Asylum is a great opening track, setting up the tone of what's to come. Wheelchair Dude is in a state of constant build-up, sounding like something is getting on your nerves. It never culminates, constantly building up until it just ends, perfectly capturing a feeling of anxiety and unrest. Surgeon Sneaking 3-parter combines quiet build-up with loud trombones and violins, offering Jaws-like suspense with additional background noises perfectly capturing the danger that is Richard Traeger. Now my song sounds grand and epic, a great culmination to the whole OST. Although it's not the end of the tracklist, it is a high point. Any issues with the soundtrack are mostly the issues with the game itself. The game is not that long, so it doesn't get on your nerves, but getting the same chase music again and again is tiring. And music dictates the game here. You get the chase music, you know you need to run. Music ends, you know you're safe. The mixing is also not that great. The basic setting for the music is too loud. It triumphs over any other sound in the game. Sometimes the music also just stops abruptly. In other cases, it can continue way past the intended set piece. Let's get back to the weird screaming dude. In my first playthrough, I ran past him while he was opening the door. What the fuck is happening with the sound? I hear his screams and that's fine, can be even scary, but the music sputters, tries to become the chase theme, then immediately cuts out because I'm technically in a safe zone. The sound you get when you die is ridiculous. You get these trumpets every time you die, no matter how. They are very loud, of course, but that's not the only problem. If you get killed during a chase sequence, it's fine. But if you get killed in a relatively calm manner, for example by the twins who are very slow, then it sounds weird.
I just had sarcasm. I swear, assholes. Stupid. Let's pull him in and slit his belly open. Wait.
Same thing happens if you just fall. Regarding other sounds, they are good. The water splashes, all the camera effects, the noise you hear when you get hit are all good and serve as a great addition to the game's presentation. Honestly, I would argue that these environmental sound effects do the most work in selling Outlast atmosphere. They are one of the game's absolute highlights. Alas, we've come to an end. We've come in expecting a horror game about an insane asylum, the one that could scare us and provide memorable experience. What did we get in the end? Outlast is a roller coaster ride. It doesn't bring anything unique. If you watch video compilations of the game, it will be the same jump scares over and over and over and over. None of them are unique. Everyone has the exact same experience. The game's shallow, repetitive, derivative, and far too reliant on cheap tricks to sustain real tension. It's more of a movie than an actual game. Is there any value in such experience? Well, of course. But is the game actually good? Absolutely not. We've covered Outlast's story and lore, characters, their backstories and motivations, gameplay, visuals, atmosphere and sound. Outlast excels in some parts while miserably failing in most. Everything falls apart upon a closer inspection. The story is contrived and vague. Characters are non-existent. Most interactions are with shallow husks, although with good voice acting. The gameplay is pretty basic, which doesn't save it from being broken, mainly due to enemy AI being dumb. And the game heavily relies on said AI to deliver so-called true survival horror experience. The visuals are good but get repetitive real fast, and it has deep atmospheric soundtrack, which is not enough to improve this game. We also checked other opinions on the game, and most of the videos are made on the vibes, how the game made them feel and whatnot. And that's all fine. It's when those reviewers get into factual zone, they straight up get shit wrong. Maybe because they want to justify their enjoyment of the game, or maybe they didn't pay enough attention, but that is not something I find acceptable. Outlast provides very limited experience. It doesn't take much to scare somebody with an instant appearance of someone's face and a loud noise. The game doesn't hold up, although it aged quite well. By that I mean the game still looks good. The gameplay is dated, but for my taste it was not good to begin with. The whole game wasn't, from the very beginning. Some mechanics sure are outplayed today, but the experience as a whole is just subpar, and so it was in 2013. With that said, Outlast undoubtedly had a significant impact. Its cultural influence is undeniable. It exploded during the early Let's Play boom, where screams, face cams, and panic deck slapping reactions were the equivalent of current clickbaits. Whether Outlast helped popularizing Let's Plays or just rode its wave is debatable, but it shaped the streamer horror format that dozens of games would chase afterwards. It also helped popularizing the horror genre where you can't defend yourself, even though Amnesia was the pioneer and Outlast took the wrong lessons from it, but it is what it is. Of course, the whole locker room gameplay, not to mention the jump scare horror, although you could argue Five Nights at Freddy's did more damage on that department, but games like Puppy Playtime, Layers of Fear, Visage are successors of Outlast. Outlast mattered. It resonated with a massive audience. It influenced a generation of horror creators, and it became part of gaming culture in a way that many better games never do. But influence alone doesn't make a good game, and looking at Outlast strictly as a game, 12 years removed from its hype, it doesn't push the genre forward, it doesn't innovate its mechanics, and it doesn't reward deeper engagement. It scares aloud instead of smart, and its systems rarely evolve beyond what you see in the first hour. While it has its strong moments, the soundtrack, the graphics, the lighting are all great. The Traeger sequence is definitely a highlight, but all the issues with its nonsensical story, brain-dead AI, overall gameplay issues, and lack of meaningful interactions, lack of characters, and visual bloat bring the game down a lot. My recommendation would be to avoid this game and play something far more compelling and deeper. There were better horror games before and after. Soma and Amnesia are obvious candidates. I personally am a fan of Resident Evil 2 and Silent Hill 2, although these games are a different kind of horror. And that about covers Outlast. I'm not really good with the whole subscribe, click the button, leave a like, leave a comment check, but I hope you enjoyed this video. It took a lot of work, but I really enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please be excited for my next projects. For now, I must beat you.
Head out and take a stroll. Go ahead, I'll wait here. Go on, run free. I'm in no hurry. No? to the grindstone. I like that. Okay, then.